There we go. All right. Hi, Lacey, Lisa, and Sarah.
Hello.
So today we have Britany Greenwalt on for our workshop, and she is the founder of the 11th Essential. I personally met her a few times through Women Who Hike, and then another time through like a outdoor get together called Wild Midwest. And she's going to teach us just a little bit about Leave No Trace, and then also the mission of the 11th Essential. So I'll let her take it away.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the, I'm trying to get, I accidentally opened that other window there. I'm like trying to make it so I just don't look at myself while I talk. There we go. Like nothing's worse than staring at yourself the whole time. So like she said, I am Britany. I use she, her pronouns, and I, like she said, we've met a few times, some outdoor things. I have been very privileged to have that opportunity to do a little bit of traveling, like solo to camp and hike and things like that. And through those travels and like taking my nieces and nephews outside, we started to realize that we kind of had a recurring theme when we were outdoors. And that was we were finding a lot of trash. We would take a bag to pack our own stuff for snacks and things out, because if you've ever hiked near children, etc., you have to keep them fed the entire time in order to keep them going, or anything in that matter. And so, you know, we'd always pack something, but we realized we were filling up this bag over and over with trash or things that shouldn't be out there that weren't ours. So in doing that, I was teaching them at the same time, I was teaching them about the 10 essentials and the Leave No Trace principles, just to make them, you know, better educated outdoorists. And we made a joke one day when we were cleaning up that a trash bag was going to be our 11th essential. And ding, ding, a light came on. And I was like, you know what? You know, this is something that is missing. We have a really big gap in access to outdoor education, you know, access to the outdoors, but an even bigger gap in outdoor education. So with 11th Essential, our goal is to fill that gap with education and action and advocacy, but without, you know, having a teaching model or something. You know, one of the biggest, I guess, you know, guidelines is the Leave No Trace principles. So most of our educational material is based off of their youth, Bigfoot's Buddies curriculum, but obviously in settings like this, you know, we're adults, we're not gonna need the little cutesy things with, they've got the little boots and things for them to remember, right? We don't need that. So what we need to do is know our whys, right? Why do we go outside and why do we want to protect it? So it's up to you guys kind of how you want this to do. I mean, how many of you are familiar with Leave No Trace? I'm guessing you're all, we're out. I was gonna say you're in a trail group, you know. I don't want to assume, you know, because there are those gaps, but I just wanted to check. Also, have any of you taken an awareness workshop or a trainer course or anything like that before? All right. Well, so today, up to you, and obviously even just talking about it. So I'm going to start out talking about the 7 principles. So, and then we're going to kind of go from there, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the 11th essential and what we do and what we hope to do over the next few years. But after this, once I get through the 7 principles, if you guys want, I can submit that roster as a training workshop, and you guys can all get certificates for an awareness workshop. So that way you have, like a certificate that says, hey, I went through this, awareness workshop. Because luckily, with my work, I did become a certified Leave No Trace trainer. So just by doing that, I can, facilitate an awareness workshop. And I thought that this worked really well. It's a nice, group, a smaller group setting, and gives a little chance to kind of go through those and just get more familiar with the principles. Does anybody know all 7 principles? Without, yeah, I know. It's even teaching them over and over. If I had to sit there and just like name them off in a row, I'd be like, I don't really know. They even teach us these like hand signals to remember them, but I can't remember the hand signals like half the time and like how they correlate. So I'm like, yeah, I'll just go with talking about them in some, what we'll say, like a more memorable way than maybe the actual name of the principle. So with principle one is know before you go. That's the shorthand term. It's plan ahead and prepare, but we're going to take that a little bit, further, and know before you go. That's a quick, easy thing to memorize. And that's exactly, that's one that I laugh. It's kind of self-explanatory. You want to know what you're getting into. You want to know, where you're visiting. You want to know what, if you're going to hike a certain trail, you want to look up information on it. You obviously are going to want to know how long it is, all of these different things. So you take that and you expand it, to just also knowing what the weather is. That's a big part in planning. You don't want to show up to a hike and expect it to be, 60 degrees and you're hitting a cold snap and it's like 30 and you have no, warm layers or anything like that, or vice versa. You don't want to have only, so that's another big part, is to just know before you go. The other big part of that too is also know the regulations. Yes, anything can happen in the Midwest. That is sure. We definitely have that going on here right now. That is the truth. That can also respond to like, backpacking trips, know how many days you're going to be out, know how much food you're going to need. You don't want to, by not being prepared, it's not necessarily so much sometimes about you as is it like the harm that it could possibly cause to the land. So that's one of the bigger things, it could be miserable campers, and then you end up, you forget, you're going on a backpacking trip, you forget a sleeping pad or your sleeping bag. So you're like, you know what, I'm going to toss this tent on this nice soft patch of grass. And now you've damaged that grass because you've, tossed that on something that can be, a surface that can be damaged. So they can, not plan, you can, use up resources and things like that. So sorry, I haven't taught this in a long time. And I'm like, man, I've got to get my flow back into the actual, into the rhythm. So the big thing with every principle, and I mentioned it earlier, is your why. Lots of times, we've all been to school and things where people can talk at you and say these things. And you're like, yeah, it's kind of important. But until you know why it's important or why it's important to you, you're probably not going to care, which is why we want to build, a really great community of outdoor stewards, people who love the outdoors, no matter how they get outside, whether it's, a city park, a walk around their block, or, a backpacking trip. Because if they love the outdoors, they're going to want to protect it. And then that's how we help, spread education or get people invested in wanting to do the right things and to take care of those places that we recreate. So that is one of the reasons why each of these principles has like a why. Like, why is trip planning important? Why is it important to prepare? It helps ensure the safety of yourself, of maybe a group you're with. You know, say we talked about a little bit about group hikes. We mentioned women who hike. Some of those we know have a group limit. We don't want to have, you can't have 40 people on a very small single track trail that really should only hold, you know, maybe a group of 5 at the most. You know, you're going to create more damage with those. Chances are you're going to somehow widen that trail or something like that. So knowing those things, it prepares you, planning prepares you to be able to leave no trace and minimize that damage. It prepares you to be able to accomplish your goals. You know, you don't want to be like, I am going to, you know, reach this peak today, but then your own poor planning is what keeps you from the top. You know, nothing, you know, that's just frustrating. Or just your safety. Maybe you couldn't, you know, get up there and enjoy it because you weren't able to make it there safely. So, and it makes you more self-confident. You know, we all get outside, you know, mostly because we, you know, really enjoy it. It's something that makes us feel good, makes us feel like ourselves, you know, and we want that confidence. You know, we're going out there to feel better. And so that makes you feel more prepared to deal with things that might come at you that way. So that is why, you know, that's always a big, planning ahead and preparing is going to be something that we always, it almost sounds like something that we know we do, but maybe we don't always look at all of the factors. So know before you go, AKA plan ahead and prepare. So the second principle I have to bring out from my training class. So when you're in training class, you get assigned a principle and you have to do an entire presentation on that principle, like a 5-10 minute presentation on just one principle. So I was doing my official trainer thing during COVID, and we had gone online. And we were trying to figure out how to get creative, because usually your trainer classes are in person, you're outside, you're doing, you know, things that you would normally be doing. And all of us were trying to get creative. So the second principle is travel and camp on durable surfaces. That's forever to say, choose the right path. Sounds a lot easier. Okay. So so we go with choose the right path. So for this, we brought out our little foot, and he was we had miniatures, so we had to make it interesting. So this is how we figure out where we can hike and where we can't. So with that, it is exactly what it says: travel and camp in durable surfaces. Know what's going to cause the least amount of impact to the land you're visiting. So for instance, you know, travel on trails. Most places have established trails, you know, that's usually why we're there. We've heard about a trail or we've researched a trail and there's an actual trail. So staying on those trails, especially when it does say like, do not travel, you know, off trail, is so critical. Because if you've ever been to a place that may have dispersed, you know, camping and gets a lot of it, you start to see all those little side trails that come, because people start to see that path over and over. And before you know it, there are what they consider user like created trails that just pop up everywhere. And then a bigger issue with not only are those causing impact to the land, they also cause a lot of people to get lost, which causes an even bigger issue because they're out traveling around and, you know, walking around in these other places. So concentrating that travel, you know, on the trail, especially a pre-existing trail, is really crucial. One of the other things with that is with a group, you know, single file, you know, try to walk single file. You know, we don't want to widen that trail anymore. You can go, you know, cutting switchbacks. That's, you know, a huge one. If you've ever been to a place that has a bunch of switchbacks and people are, you know, trying to walk straight up or down, then you see, you know, that path created, which is just causing, you know, more negative impact to that vegetation, causes more erosion, which is going to cause, you know, even bigger impacts with mudslides or whatever, depending on the region. So keeping that intact is not only preserving the trail, it's preserving that entire, you know, that place and that ecosystem. You know, sometimes you have to step off trail, you know, there might be people passing. So you always look for the spot of, you know, least impact, and you want to look for the surface durability. If you see a big rock off to the side, hop on top of it. If it's something that's, you know, a little more flat, you know, that's more durable than the grass next to it or whatever vegetation. If you do travel off trail, say you are in a dispersed area, you know, try to kind of spread out your travel, especially. And then if you do have a group, don't take the same path, you know, kind of spread out over that portion. You know, you can still see each other, hear each other, but just don't walk, you know, right behind each other. By doing that, you're spreading out your impact, which is gonna be better for the environment overall than that concentrated impact on that same spot over and over. So the biggest portion of this is surface durability. Okay, so whenever I teach this to kids, we have what they call a surface hopscotch game. So we put all these like little, well, that's my cover page for it, I guess, like little things that have all our different surfaces, like sand and things. And we, you know, flip them upside down. And so they have to go and kind of flip them over. And the goal is to make it to the other end, only walking on durable surfaces. So if they flip one over and it's not durable, you know, they have to stay put and keep going. So a lot of people don't realize some things that are durable versus non-durable. Because for instance, wet grass, there's one of them I always screw up because it's wet something is fine, not fine to walk on, but dry grass, that's it. Wet grass is not good to walk on, but dry grass is. So like, but the really dry grass, not like our nice green grass. So some of them have a little bit, but the big one is mud. Walk through the mud. Do not walk around the mud. You know, you can jump over the mud, that's fine, but just walk through it. Parents hate when I tell their kids that. I get lots of dirty looks in my youth classes, but that's why I make the parents stay so that they learn it too. But yes, walk right through the mud. You want to go right through, because otherwise that's another one instance that's going to widen the trail. It's going to create that negative impact of causing, you know, more trail through the other than a thinner trail. Oh, I used all of my talking today for another meeting. So, but when we want to touch on this is some special types of soil and things that we don't probably, I mean, that we might not really have exposure to in the Midwest. So this was one that I got to see firsthand for the first time about probably almost 3 years ago now or so. And if you've ever traveled to the desert or anywhere like that, cryptobiotic soil, at first it just looks like black. It just looks like black on top of you know, the dirt, the red rock, and it is alive and like thousands of years old, and it's like the main, you know, source of everything for nutrients and things for the organisms around it. So it's one of those things that you do not step on. You literally can, I mean, it will just be ruined like with one step. So it's something to really be on the lookout for, especially because in a lot of those desert areas, they are a lot of dispersed camping, you know, dispersed hiking, a lot of BLM and national forest lands out there. And it's just everywhere. We were at a camp out, literally just walking to see sunrise, and thank goodness we had headlamps on, or we would have just stepped right. It was just out of nowhere, just this big patch. So definitely one of those things to look out for in certain areas. And most of them are kind of, I don't want to say judgment calls, but like dry grass, like I said, is able to be walked on. Rocks, you want to watch the rocks that are like lichen covered. You don't want to step on any of those, you know, organisms. Here, I've got my cheat sheets here to make sure. Water, is water a durable surface? I always laugh at this because I'm like, am I walking on the water? Because I don't think that is I don't think that's what I'm doing, but I see what you mean. Like through the water, I get it. So water is a durable surface. So wooden boardwalks, clearly, that's why we're doing it. Wet grass, that's a no-go. You want to try to avoid it if you can. Some of these are funny. Flowers, do we all know not to walk, walk through the flowers? Rocks, walk on rocks and sand and things like that at any chance you get. I am absolutely the person you will watch, even on a trail, rock hop if it's like a rocky trail. I mean, just because I'm like, whatever, it spices it up a bit. And I'm like, okay, I'm creating less, you know, less impact even this way on the trail. So rock, sand, and gravel, that's something that they, you know, they say all over and over are your biggest durable surfaces. So if you have a chance to, you know, hike on those, do so. Just keep an eye out for the lichen that can sometimes get on some of those rocks. So let's see here. We'll jump right here. So principle 3 is one that I could clearly do sessions on for days and days and days, because principle 3 is dispose of waste properly, or trash your trash. So obviously with the 11th essential, this is our huge focus for this. Like this is what we, you know, this is the principle or the guideline that we are trying to help, you know, really dive into the education for. And one of the things that is not trash that I will jump right into here first, because this is the worst kind of trash, is human waste. So there have been plenty of times when I cannot, you know, people have not unfortunately disposed of this properly. So if you are, obviously human waste is not, you know, a great thing to have just lying around. It's a reason it gets like biohazard, you know, marked in hospitals and everything else, like especially depending on what you're eating, it could not be so great. So we really need to be careful, because we know when we're outside, we are near usually resources, water systems, or we're in the mountains where that snow is draining into the water, you know, the water source, things like that. So burying our poo, okay? Get you a nice little trowel if you don't have one. They're usually about 6 inches long, because the hole should be 6 inches deep. Dig yourself a nice little hole, put it in there and cover it back up. That's why they call it a cat hole. You're gonna dig it, fill it, cover it right back up. So that is how you're going to dispose of waste. And in a lot of your outdoor and backcountry settings, if there's no, pit toilets or anything available. But the desert, you're going to want to buy some sort of kind of poo in a bag packet. Okay. It's going to be like a disposable, what they call wag bag. And it's got some chemical powder and stuff in it. And you're gonna poo in it, and you're gonna keep it with you until you get to a normal trash can where you can dispose of it, because those chemicals and stuff in the bag are going to break down your poo, so it makes it safe to be around regular people and trash. Yes, and please at least dig a hole for it, because I have unfortunately put my hand in human poo while trying to clean up a diaper. And it was not I'm pretty sure they probably heard my F-bomb echo throughout the Hocking Hills, because I was not a happy camper. So that's one of those things. So dispose of waste properly. But we all know we do also have, I recommend, we all know that people who menstruate have a not fun time sometimes when we're outside. Okay. We have to pack that out. We have to take it with us. Some tips: if you have like a Ziploc bag, duct tape the sides of it so it's completely like covered, and you can take that to dispose of them. Personally, and at least and others as well, I have switched to the Minstrel Cup, which it has turned to be out great, in the outdoors, because much like your poo, you dig a little hole and you can dump it into it and cover it, and it's going to break down, and it's actually way more sanitary for the outdoors than your poo in a hole. So it works out better for everyone involved. So that one, take a little water bottle with you, squirt it on it, do whatever. And it makes it better, especially for multi-day trips, than having, this bag with disgusting, what is disgusting around, and you're like, this isn't great. Especially, at least for me, I'm like, there are bears and things, and that is not something I want anywhere near me. I wish I had like a queue up of Anchorman. I heard their periods attract bears. And that's what I need for this presentation. When I do that, I need to be able to click it. So obviously peeing in the outdoors is our biggest thing that we do when it comes to human waste, is urinating. And it does affect like soils and vegetations differently, because some places there might be wildlife that is attracted to salts, like the goats and things in Washington, like want to come and lick that. So, and that can like kill plants and things. So if you're peeing in the grass or something, they can lick all of those things. Oh, Lisa, that is bad. I'm glad that it's from your salty hands, though, and that you did not pee on your trekking poles. But right, so we don't want them to dig up the soil or do like that. So if you're in one of those places, you want to pee on like the rocks or gravel, or a thing of like pine needles, dilute it out with some water, even in some of those cases, just to help not have a natural part of the land destroy the land. So one of our next things too, we'll focus on like the trash, because some people are always really surprised to see how long things last. So the trash timeline is always one of my favorite games, to like get objects and lay them out and let people guess like which section that they go into, especially some of them that people are like, wait, I can't throw that out. So like, just to start with, orange and banana peels. Like, I have picked up so many of those, like probably more than any other piece of trash. I have picked up, you know, banana peels, orange peels, apple cores, like things like that on the trail. But specifically like orange peels. Oops. I knew that was going to happen. My partner just got home, and so they're like, she's home, so I'm going to let this one out of the room. I was afraid of that, but we'll never get broken into without knowing. Like that is for sure. Sorry about that. But orange and banana peels. So, you know, and I've had plenty of people say, wait, but isn't that biodegradable? And it is biodegradable, you know, it's compostable, but the but to it is it takes up to 2 years for that to break down. And so the other problem is it attracts wildlife, because that's a food source, you know, especially something like that. That's like a sweet type, you know, smell, that citrusy smell. The banana can attract wildlife, which can cause a problem. And that's not in their normal diet, especially, well, at least in this area, you know what I mean? Like here, we don't have banana trees or orange trees like in Ohio, for instance. They're not growing anywhere around here. So that's not something in that wildlife's ecosystem. So it's the same way really with any food scraps that you may have, you know, on trail. You want to dispose of those properly, whether it's packing it out in something, because those items are still not good for the wildlife, not for the environment, can still habituate animals, you know, to people, which we all know causes, unfortunately, you know, in Tennessee has a really bad problem with visitors feeding the black bears. When they do that, you know, the food itself isn't probably going to kill that black bear, but what is going to kill the black bear is him getting used to coming up to people wanting food. Then when people don't give it food, they're going to become aggressive, and then they get euthanized. And that's probably the leading killer of black bears in Tennessee, I would say, at this rate, because unfortunately it's something you hear far too often in Tennessee, Colorado, and places like that. So don't feed the wildlife. Make sure you pack that stuff out with you, because throw out, you know, food might decompose, but it's definitely something we don't want out there. So one of the other things on trail, cigarette butts. People, for whatever reason, think those filters will just break down because they're paper and just disintegrate into nothing. But they take 1 to 5 years to break down. So that's cigarette butts. Think of how many people you might see smoking, and if they're all throwing them out, just think of how many cigarette butts you might have even seen in parking lots. And then just imagine in 5 years, those being there plus that many more. And so it's just like something that a lot of people also don't realize. That's why you see a lot of them chucked out windows. I mean, I don't think I go a day without someone flicking one out of the window, you know, near me on the road. Leather and wool. This is one they just added to the list. And at first I was like, what trash are they finding so much? And then when I read it, I was like, oh my goodness, I do pick that up a lot. Belts and socks. So I don't really find many belts, but I do find a lot of wool socks that have been left behind, and they can take 1 to 5 years to break down. So make sure you have all your stuff. I mean, I find other clothing items too, but they're, you know, random synthetic blends. So who knows how long they'll last. So food wrappers, plastic coated paper, 5 years. So all of those things can still last, you know, 5 years. Tin cans, 50 years out there. One of my top finds next, aluminum cans. Any guesses on aluminum cans?
I would guess 10 years.
80 to 100 years for aluminum cans. So every time you find a beer can or a pop can out there that you've picked up and cleaned up, you have kept it from being there for another century, basically, that it was going to be there.
Yeah, that actually makes sense because people collect them and they last a very long time. So
exactly right, and you recycle them because they're, you know, they're a metal. So this one, Felicia, you know that I have, this is the bane of my existence because I clean these up a lot, unfortunately. Disposable diapers. I clean up more disposable diapers than I'd ever care to admit. I have not made one trip to Hocking Hills, and I can never make it out of there without finding at least one diaper. At least one. My record is 5 in one trip in a 6-mile loop. So 450 years. The diaper could have been there for 450 years. I mean, that is a mind-blowing number when you think about it. The next one, monofilament fishing line. So a lot of us have hiked near, you know, a lot of places like that is, you know, near a lot of places we like to frequent are near rivers and lakes and things like that. And so if you've ever hiked along, you know, the edge, you probably see fishing line. 600 years. Like, it's just crazy. And that stuff, you see it tangled up and in the water and everywhere. I can only imagine the amount that we like can't see. So that's it's a crazy number. Glass bottles, 1 million years. Glass bottles will last 1 million years. And they recently changed this one. They used to have the plastic bottles and styrofoam, like basically infinite, but they changed a little bit of the wording. So the decomposition is going to vary based on how big they start in the first place, how they're going to break down. But basically, they should obviously be avoided. We all hear the microplastics, you know, styrofoam is a microplastic, basically. Don't burn the trash. Like, you know, some people are like, oh, okay, but that releases heavy toxins, which are going to come down into the soil, attract wildlife to the fire rings. So plastic and styrofoam, if possible, we can leave it out because it's basically going to last forever in some form or another. So it might not still be that plastic bottle, but it's going to end up being a very small shred of a plastic bottle. And like I said, I know I could go on about that one forever. So we're going to touch on the other ones because I think they're not as long. They don't have as many, you know, breakdowns. Very easily, principle number 4, leave what you find. Pretty self-explanatory, doesn't need an extra little shortness for you to remember. Leave what you find. It's okay to like touch things, you know, rocks, plants, whatever that you may be looking at. Take a picture. The whole, you know, take pictures. I just forgot that actual quote. What is it? no, take memories or pictures, take only foot. I give up anyway.
I think it's like leave only footprints and
Take only pictures, right?
something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, I'm like, yes, it is. Leave only footprints, take only pictures. That's it. God, that's how my brain is working. But, so leave what you find. And part of that too is leaving what you find, as in making sure to clean your shoes when you leave. That way you're not carrying species from that to a different environment on your shoes. So leave what you find, not only what you pass, what you see, but leave behind, the remnants or those little guys that could be transporting on your shoes to somewhere else. Principle 5, minimize campfire impacts, or be careful with fire. They recommend now to not even do a campfire in the backcountry, to do camp stoves or cold soak. They're really trying to minimize backcountry campfires because unfortunately we've all seen the increase in fires over the last few years, and unfortunately doesn't look like it'll get any better. Not at least anytime soon. It's only probably going to get worse. So campfires, unless they are in, a designated campsite with a fire ring, then we shouldn't. Now the recommendation is to not have a fire and take that camp stove to cook instead. Keep your fires small. Even if you do have a camp ring fire, keep it to what you need. Don't make some huge fire just because you can. Just make whatever you need to keep warm or cook, etc. Make sure you put it out. I'm like, there's a smoky hat and there's some smoky hiding here somewhere. So make sure you drowned out that fire. Cool to the touch, scatter ashes if you have to, depending on where you are. Principle 6, respect wildlife. Once again, pretty self-explanatory. Observe them from the distance. Follow the thumb rule. If you stick your thumb out from your face, if you can close one eye and put your thumb and it can't cover it up, you're too close. That's an easy way to judge that 50 yards or more. If you can stick your arm all the way out and put your thumb up, if you can cover it up, then you are good to go. Protect them also by some of the principles previously, by leaving, no trash behind, no food items. Knowing before you go, you can help respect wildlife by knowing what wildlife is there before you go. Maybe you need bear spray. Maybe you need, bear cans. You can protect them by planning ahead and being able to pack accordingly. And principle 7, the long thing is be considerate of other visitors, but be kind. And I think now this is one that might become, an even bigger one, because don't just be respect, the things that they originally made this principle on were, respecting other campers and their quality of experience. Don't be running around screaming at 10 o'clock at night at the campsites. Take breaks to, help whoever you're hiking with, or if, so people can pass you on the trail. And just, like I said, just be nice. They're out there enjoying and doing what they do. Don't judge them. Just be nice, smile. I used to smile. I mean, I still do, but I used to wear a smile. I used to smile, hardcore smile at everyone I passed on trail. Always. And I used to wear a smiley face hat for literally every hike until it decided to almost fall apart. And I would do that on purpose. I was like, hi. And Now, except for the exception of a couple of people, like, it makes people happy. Plus it makes them feel like everything, they're in a good space, they're in a place where they're happy and accepted. And I think that's a big thing now, is making sure that everyone around you is having not necessarily a good time, but just having a good experience. And whether that's the people you're with, or someone else that's there, like, don't let your experience inhibit somebody else's or something like that. Make sure that everyone's having a good experience. And that kind of rolls into what we call the authority of the resource, because leave no trace is not rules. They're not like rules, they're guidelines. And that's why they dropped the like outdoor ethics portion of their name, because they didn't want it to come across like you are an unethical human if you don't do all of these things correctly, because that's not the message that they were ever trying to send. It was just a message of, hey, if you kind of do these things or follow these guidelines for, this reason, then you're going to make it better for everyone. These places are going to be here. The wildlife's going to be happy. We're all going to be happy. So the authority of the resource is kind of their way of enforcing it, which is non-enforcement. We used to hear of people who were like going out and like being like, you can't camp, that close to the water, that's 200 feet. Well, no one's going to listen to you if you come at them like, hardcore park ranger mode. Like, nobody's gonna do that. Even park rangers don't do that. They come at them from a place of education and giving them, the reasons why. At Hocking Hills, when we see people jumping, they're in the like off trail section where they're not supposed to be. It even says, closed for restoration, or they're swimming in the spot they're not supposed to be. That's one of the places I've been able to be like, hey, I know you look like you're having a great time, but did you know there are like really cool things in here still from like the ice age when the glaciers melted? And I'm like, explain to them why their pH can like kill them. And, just because they don't care that the sign says, don't do that, because if they did, they wouldn't have done it in the first place. It's giving them a reason to care why they shouldn't do it. And so that's a big part about it, or just helping educate. So many people don't have access to this. I grew up in the parks. I didn't really have this kind, it existed, but I didn't really know these guidelines. It was more so grandpa going, hey, don't leave that out there. We don't want to leave that outside. It's going to attract the wildlife and whatever, but it was not presented like this. So, the more we get out there, the better. And so that's I would say quick, but I know that was not quick rundown of the seven principles, but they really are just a guideline. They're a framework, basically, a framework to help you do the minimum impact for visiting the outdoors. And that's everywhere. Originally, they were developed obviously for the backcountry. That is where Leave No Trace is rooted. But we've adapted them because they can be applied anywhere. Remote wilderness, your city park, wherever you're going, they can be applied to that. Any recreational activity. You can actually go on their site. They even have like a Leave No Trace card for climbing now, and just all whitewater rafting and just all these things, because they're all outdoor recreation activities. And so therefore they have an impact on the outdoors. And so we need just, it's basically kind of a best use manual to kind of, to put it, in a little more, I guess, not such a direct fashion. But Leave No Trace is all based on data. A lot of people don't realize that, though. That's one thing. It is all based on data, and they do so many surveys and collections and just get all that information to be able to, make sure these all still apply, so, and help connect all those pieces. So basically, I will say I will just wrap up about, 11th essential, and that's, we do this, our big thing that a lot of people see is just us out, telling people every time you're outdoors, pack that 11th essential, take an extra bag or whatever it is for trash. When you're out hiking, you're already out hiking, just toss it in there, pick up what you see. It makes such a difference. You might not think you see that much, and by the time you're done, you might have a small little bag full or a big bag full, and you're like, whoa, but now that stuff's not on the trail. So we do encourage that as an everyday action or an every outdoor action. But one of the biggest things that we're, COVID kind of put a wrench in, and we're looking forward to really sitting down and rolling out is a elementary curriculum program, because every fourth grader in the United States gets a free national park pass. And so we're giving these fourth graders these passes and just saying, here, go to these places that they have no idea about. So now, their parents, we have to depend on their parents, to know these things, to do these things, to help them recreate. So we're hoping we want to get the kids excited about going outside, because so many people don't even know about that program to take advantage of it. So we're either looking to do third grade leading up to fourth grade, or in fourth grade while they have the pass. And we're basically going to take our Bigfoot's Buddies curriculum that we've taught in parks and other things previously, and we're going to extend that into, hopefully Leave No Trace accredited youth program, and take that in there and teach it to basically, at least to start, every fourth grader in my current county. And then from there, we want to branch out to, whatever elementary will do it, want it, take it, hopefully be able to do a digital, like an online version, because clearly, even with people I do have that could help, I do not have enough people to go, as far as we would like it to go. We want every kid who's going to go to those parks or wants to go to those parks to see that, to understand why they should take care of that place and how they should do it. And we think that it'll get more kids outside. The more education they have about the cool things outside, why not go out? Because the kids are the smart ones. Let me tell you, little girl in my Bigfoot's Buddies class, I was trying to explain to them how we're kind of like with wildlife, we're going into their home, right? Every time we go outside, and that we don't want to wreck it, but we are. And this girl, no more than 6, mind you, showed up in a tutu and a tank top. So she was officially my favorite already. Looked at me and goes, so basically what you're saying is humans are like natural disasters to the animal world. Or like, no, that's what she said. She said, we're basically the equivalent of a natural disaster to wildlife. And I was like, I could not have said that any better. So good job. So yeah, that's what we're really looking forward to. And that's going to be, I think, what we're really gonna enjoy watching grow. So
that's super cool.
All right. Good.
Does anybody have any questions? I have kind of a fun one. What's the weirdest piece of trash you've ever found?
When I get asked this question, it instantly makes me laugh, because Rob Coughlin Granite Gear asked me this on a live video once, and I'm like, this answer is going to be fun. So it's very weird. So we have a state forest near my house, and I was walking the road walk to clean up because people drive it and just toss stuff, and there was this weird thing about this big, and it looked like a baby bottle, like you could almost, like you should wrap your fingers around it, but the top was missing, right? And I'm like, what the? And I get close, and mind you, thank God I have my grabber in my bag, and I'm like, I pick it up, and I'm like, this is weird. The top is like silicone, and it's got the smallest little hole, and I'm like, this like some sort of sippy cup, whatever. I'm like, okay, this is weird. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like trying to hold it and look through the holes. I'm like, is it like textured in there? What is wrong? So I put it in my trash bag, only to walk about 3 steps, and there was a black plastic bag that I picked up with my grabber, and I turned it over, and we have a lion's den about 5 minutes from that forest, and I picked it up, and it was a lion's den bag, and my brain started to put it together. In said lion's den bag was the receipt for the pocket pussy that
That's
I
so
had
bad.
just picked up. So yeah, however, I mean, they could have only like used it once and tossed it out the window. So I really don't know. That's looked like, I mean, that thing cost like $60 according to that receipt. So I wished it was new because there was no more packaging. I saw Lisa's comment. But yeah, but then a few steps later, I found a tent left in the woods with a deer that had been filleted open by an animal of some sort. So that was fun. That was a fun cleanup day. I also found a top of a fax machine that day, not a fax, a copier or a scanner or something. Yeah, just tossed in the edge of the woods. It's fine. So, oh yeah, but that's always, people are always asking that, and it makes me like blush, like, it's a good time, a little X-rated.
So before we wrap up, do you mind if we do like a group screenshot picture?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Lisa, do you want to have your video on for that?
I can come back on 1 second.
Okay.
Get ready.
I was just like eating and stuff because this always happens. But I have like multiple meetings in a night, and
Oh yeah.
so trying to fit it in.
All right. I'm gonna try the print screen button. So say cheese. Okay, it worked.
Yeah.
No, but I feel you, Lisa. I was doing that outdoors oath training, and we were supposed to have our cameras on the whole time, and I was also trying to eat, and I was like,
I know. I'm also like, oh man, it's like 2 years into the pandemic. I think we all agree that like sometimes the cameras can go off. You know?
yeah, I'm really jealous. My partner, her company, and which is my mom works for too, they hardly ever have their cameras on. Their whole meeting, nobody has a camera on. And I'm like, you are the luckiest person.
Yeah, early in the pandemic, we were on this meeting and we had just started working from home. So I was like slobbing it up really hard. And we were on a meeting with like some semi-important people. And I messaged my coworker, like, no way I'm turning my camera on. I look like hell. And I sent it to everyone. I was like, oh my God. And I was like, okay, nobody acknowledged it. Good. But I don't know. The struggles are very real.
I think we have all had some interesting virtual things happen to us at this point. So
yes.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it, giving me a chance to, like I said, because of the pandemic, it hasn't really had many of our normal opportunities to go out and about or present. And even worse, I mean, kids, because they couldn't get any vaccines, so they really didn't want me in any elementaries this year. So
thank you for your time.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. You are very welcome. Guys all have a good
Great.
evening.
Yep, you too.
Bye.
I'm gonna stop the recording now.